皆さん、こんにちは。Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Atsuko Ichikawa, one of the EducationUSA advisor in Tokyo. Thank you very much for joining our webinar. Before introducing the speakers for today, let me briefly introduce EducationUSA. EducationUSA is a U.S. Department of State network of over 400 advising centers in more than 170 countries and territories. The network promotes U.S. higher education to students worldwide by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information about opportunities to study at accredited post-secondary institutions in the United States. We have 6 EducationUSA centers in Japan at the U.S. Embassy and Consulates. Today's webinar, EducationUSA is hosting today's session. If you have any questions, please contact EducationUSA near you. So now, please join me in welcoming two speakers for today, Rick and Ryan. Rick used to be our EducationUSA team member as well. So I will hand it over to Rick and Ryan. Let me
Thank you.
Just a second. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, here we go.
Thank you, Atsuko. Yes, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending our session on applying to graduate schools. My name is Richard O'Rourke, Director of Admissions at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, and I'll turn over to my colleague.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Byington. I'm the Director of Admissions for the Masters of Science in Foreign Service at the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C.
All right, and we will share a brief PowerPoint. And we'd like to first introduce our schools, talk a little bit about our schools here in Washington, D.C. We'll discuss preparing to apply for graduate school, give you some tips for success, and talk about financial aid before moving to your questions. And please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A during the session, and we'll address those at the end. So as we mentioned, both Johns Hopkins and Georgetown are located in Washington, D.C., which is the capital of the United States, located in the mid-Atlantic between Maryland and Virginia, about 365 kilometers to New York City. And if you take a train, that's about a 4-hour train ride. We do not have a Shinkansen, so it is a longer train ride than maybe you're used to. But, you know, Georgetown and Johns Hopkins were both here from schools of international affairs. That's our graduate schools specialize in international affairs. And Washington, D.C. is a great location for the study of international relations. And when choosing a graduate school, location can be very important, particularly in our field, because our campus, we consider Washington, D.C. An extension of our campuses. It's the ideal backdrop for the study of international relations. And Washington, D.C. is an epicenter of foreign policy and international trade and international negotiations. We're also home to major research institutes that our students can take advantage of. And the city offers a wide range of access to career networking events, lectures, speakers, and panel discussions all over the city. First, I'll talk about Johns Hopkins SAIS. So we were founded in 1943, right in the middle of World War II, by Paul Nietzsche, who was Secretary of the Navy at the time, and Kenny Herter, who was Secretary of State. And they started Johns Hopkins School of International Studies, also known as SAIS. They started SAIS in order to prepare professionals for the post-World War II climate. Their vision was to focus on innovative thinking, innovative approaches, and analytical approaches to problem solving, but also building policy expertise. And that's very much the core to our culture today. We've grown from a single campus in Washington, D.C. to a global campus. We also have a campus in Nanjing, China, the Hopkins Nanjing Center at the prestigious Nanjing University of China. And also we have our own campus in Europe, in Bologna, Italy, SAIS Europe. All excellent locations for the study of international affairs. And we offer many different programs in the field across our 3 campuses. Our traditional 2-year graduate program is the Master of Arts in International Relations. You can do one part of it in Bologna, Italy, the other part in Washington, D.C. You can also do part of this program in Nanjing, China as well. But we offer many other more accelerated 1-year specialized programs, everything from international economics and finance to public policy, global policy, strategy, cybersecurity and intelligence, global risks, sustainable energy, as well as certificate, non-degree, and doctoral programs as well. And next, I'll turn it over to Georgetown.
Thank you so much. All right, so I am going to speak a little bit about the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University. We were founded in 1919, and we conferred our first degree in 1921. So we are just celebrating our 100-year history. So go ahead to the next slide. Perfect. So we are the oldest school of international relations in the United States. When you hear the term foreign service, some may think of the foreign service at the United States Department of State. However, our School of Foreign Service was created before the State Department's use of the term foreign service. So while many of our alumni and our students go on to be ambassadors, that is not always, that's just one of the many career paths that our alumni take. And we can talk a little bit more about that here soon. So our program is combines academic rigor and professional development. So we are a very practical program. You are going to be learning from practitioners that work in the field. As Rick said, Washington, D.C. is the center of all things in the United States. So people are able to come and work in all the different organizations, whether it be public, private, nonprofit, global, anything like that. They are based in, a lot of them are based in Washington, D.C. And some of them come and teach or do their research at Georgetown University, during the day or in the evening. So as mentioned, we are located in Washington, D.C. And with our location that is close to New York and, being located in Washington, D.C., being near Philadelphia and other major cities on the East Coast of the United States, our alumni are very well connected and come back to campus all the time to either mentor, to teach, or just to visit and expand their networks as well. So go ahead. So the School of Foreign Service, or SFS, as mentioned, we have world-renowned faculty and practitioners, and we really concentrate on research, internships and fellowships, international experience, and student organizations and outreach. So if you ever want to do research with a professor, you have the opportunity to do that. Many of our professors take on fellows that work maybe 20 hours a week, 15 to 20 hours a week, and they research a topic of, whatever their professor is working on. So whether that be business and finance, whether that be cybersecurity, diplomacy, the topics are endless. We have a professor that is probably studying or researching that topic, and they're always happy to have their students join them. Same thing with internships and fellowships. We have a career center that helps all of our students, both domestic and international, in all areas of networking, in interviews, resumes, a lot of different companies from both domestic and international come to recruit on campus, And it just really helps make those connections for you and works with you on all things career related. International experience. So our main campus is in Washington, D.C. Part of the Masters of Science in Foreign Service program, we require an internship. Many students do those internships abroad between their first and second years in the program. And if the internship is unpaid, we do, in some cases, have funding for paid internships. So just to remind you, you can have practical experience along with your theoretical experience in the classroom. And then we have many student organizations that we are very proud of, and we encourage all students to be a part of. When you are a member of the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown, you are a Georgetown student first and foremost. So you can take advantage of all the different clubs, organizations, sports teams, forums, guest speakers, anything that is open to Georgetown students, you would be able to take advantage of. So if you do not see a club that you are looking for, you can start one. There's student representatives that act as student voices to the faculty, which are very helpful. We have regional clubs for different interests, and just a lot of different opportunities that you can take advantage of. All right, go ahead. So in the School of Foreign Service, we have 8 different programs, with our flagship program being the Foreign Service, MSFS. It is our 2-year degree, full-time, 48 credits. So you'd be taking your classes mostly during the day. Some classes are in the evening, but most classes are during the day. And then if you are to work on campus or in any internships, 15 to 20 hours a week, given, visa requirements or restrictions, we work around those as well. We also have thematic programs in security studies. We have a global human development, and then you'll see that we have our regional programs listed down below. You'll also see on the right hand of our screen all the different certificate programs. These are like your minors or your second subject that you can study. It is not required, but if you are very interested in, say, international business diplomacy or gender, peace, and security, those are just some additional classes that you can take in order to customize your degree and really get the most out of your time at Georgetown and studying in Washington, D.C. Go ahead. All right, so I will turn it back over to Rick. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ryan. So we'll start with preparing to apply, and applying to any graduate school. It's first important to understand how graduate school admissions offices make decisions, and consider what they're looking for. So basically, we're looking for your aptitude to study. Has your undergraduate academic experience prepared you for advanced level graduate education in your chosen field in the program that you're applying for? And also your chance for success. We're looking for evidence that you have the capabilities to be successful in the program, particularly in the program you're applying for. Also, with graduate school, we need to see a clear sense of professional direction. It's very important because graduate schools need to know that you have a clear professional goal. It doesn't have to be a very specific goal, but it's important to demonstrate that you are going in a general direction. And also, do you have the experiences and perspectives that will add to the classroom environment and help others succeed? Graduate schools need to have a diversity of backgrounds and experiences that bring different perspectives to the class and make the academic environment more rewarding, just for yourself and also for your peers. And all of this has to support our mission and our enrollment goals. So how do we determine all of this? There are 2 basic approaches to evaluating an application practiced by graduate schools across the United States. There's the holistic approach, which is looking at the whole person. Holistic meaning whole person. These are qualitative characteristics that can't be, measured, calculated. The holistic is very different from the formulaic approach that looks at anything quantifiable, things that can be calculated and scored, GPAs and test scores, for instance. So you'll find some graduate schools that are more holistic. It could be more common with programs in like the humanities and liberal arts, similar to our schools in international affairs, where we're more research and writing intensive. And some graduate schools may be more formulaic. You can particularly see that with many programs in science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM programs, because quantitative skills are very important to those programs for success. Some colleges may be in the middle. They're a little bit holistic, a little bit formulaic, or some can be very formulaic or very holistic. Every school determines which approach best fits their needs to support their own goals, to make decisions. So how do you know what their approach is? And you can look at the admissions requirements. So a school that is more holistic is going to look for things like writing samples, your resume, recommendation letters. They may have an interview, whereas a school looking at formulaic factors are going to look more closely at your GPA, maybe your class ranking, and test scores, especially if test scores are required and they're not optional. That those schools will put more weight on the formulaic factors. So that's just a basic overview of how graduate schools are making decisions and evaluating applicants. So I'll turn it back over to Ryan for tips on how to be successful.
Thank you. All right, so no matter what graduate school you're looking at, you want to show your interest in that school and why that school and why that program specifically. So talk with an admissions representative. Both Rick and I have a team that would be more than happy to speak with you, talk a little bit more about the programs. And I know that is true with other schools at our universities as well. So always, if you are able to, seek out a meeting with admissions representatives. That meeting can be done virtually. And you can talk about, as Rick said, are they looking at programmatic or are they looking at more holistic approaches? So, kind of get that feel, and that can be really really helpful in how you craft your essay and your application. Attend graduate fairs or virtual information sessions. I know both of our programs do these all the time, and we are also always happy to have meetings to discuss more in-depth questions that you might have. And then always look at what a prerequisite course or skills that the program that you're applying to is looking for. So which courses or what skills do those schools want to see demonstrated on either your resume or your transcripts prior to applying? And those prerequisites, making sure that you have those, are one of the things that admissions committee looks at in order to determine your success in the program. We want you to be successful in the program, and we know you want to be as well. And then really take a look, identify weaknesses in your application. Is there something that you would wish was a little bit stronger? Was it your GPA? Was maybe your you didn't have an internship or co-curricular involvements? Kind of take stock of those. Take a look at those and see how you can best craft that into your application, and how can you, I'll talk about this in a few slides, but how can you strengthen your application by addressing those things. And then prepare early. So look at what tests your institution or the program that you are applying for, what do they require? Do they require the GRE? Do they require the GMAT? The LSAT for law school? What kind of entrance exams are they looking at? Now, something to note is a lot of schools in the United States you may see are now test optional or test blind, meaning that you do not need to submit these scores. That varies from school to school, so make sure you check with the individual program that you are applying to. If the school says GRE or GMAT recommended, then I would say, you know, even if it is not required, a recommendation, you would always want to talk with the admissions committee or admissions department to see, get more details on that. Most applications will ask for at least 2 letters of recommendation, maybe up to 3. We encourage you to ask your recommenders early. So your recommenders are very busy, and you want to make sure that they get their their letters of recommendation in by the time your application is due. Well, you'll want them to do that beforehand. A lot of times the application, you'll fill out their name and contact information on your application, and they will get a prompt or an email from the program telling them how to submit that letter of recommendation. And most of the time that letter will have to come directly from your recommender, and it's not something that you as the applicant can upload. It'll need to come from the recommender. And if the program is taught in English, then the letter will need to be in English. If your recommender, you know, speaks Japanese, and we would ask that it be translated by an official translator in order to be uploaded in English. And once again, check with your admissions department and ask just to clarify. Some may be different, but that is just kind of a general rule of thumb and something that you should be on the lookout for. So all of the applications are going to ask for something a little bit different, but many of the things are your resume, personal statement, transcripts, and you know, maybe some writing samples. So look early. What do those applications need? And make sure you have that information ready to go. And so you're not scrambling or you know, really worried about it the last minute. You'll want to make sure that you have all of that set to go. And then apply for early decision deadlines if possible. Now, some schools have an early decision deadline. And if there's something with early decision, if you apply, some schools, that means if you are admitted, you're committed. So if you're admitted to the program, then you're automatically, you know, saying you're going to that program. Now, some programs will have an early decision, but it's non-binding. So if it is not binding, you can apply to multiple schools early decision, and if you want to hear back. Or some schools do not have early decision, and you apply regular decision. But always take a look at those. Some schools will have different deadlines for applications, for scholarship consideration, for fee waivers. So always make sure that you have all the deadlines that you need written down, and it's always best to get your application in a few days before those deadlines, if possible, in case anything last minute comes up. And then external scholarships. So many programs have merit-based funding that they offer if you apply by a certain date, or maybe they'll have a separate application. Once again, vary school to school, but always have a list of external scholarships that you can look at as well. I know both Rick and I, our programs, we have a robust page on our website with external scholarships, and I know other schools do as well. So always make sure you look at those, because the funding in the United States, not every program, a lot of programs do not give full funding, and it varies, once again, program to program. So make sure that you have a solid list of external scholarships. And always, when you look at those scholarships, look to see what the criteria is. Are they renewable? Meaning, do you get that year after year? Or is it only a one-time scholarship and you might only get it your first semester or first year? So those are things to always look at when you are applying. So your essay. So most every application is going to have at least one essay. Now, your qualifications, a lot of this will be in your resume or your CV. So your work and volunteer experiences, your life experiences, your coursework, different projects that you've done, and the languages that you speak or are proficient in. And in your essay, you really want to talk about why this school and why this specific program. Is there a professor that you want to study with? Is there a certain topic that is only found at this one school? Do the values of that school align with your values? Make sure to communicate that, and make sure to personalize your essay to each and every school. So yes, it would be easy to have one essay for all the different schools, but every school is different. And so you want to make sure you take the time to do the research and customize your essay. So once again, state, what do you want to study? What about this topic? Why this topic? Why international affairs, or why foreign service, or whatever topic you may choose? And why do you want to go to grad school now? So our schools have been around for years, and we will be here for many, many more years, hopefully. So why now? Why this year instead of 5 years from now? So each school in the United States, so some schools take students directly from undergrad. Some schools like to see a few years of work experience before they accept their students. So once again, check the school profile. There's multiple ways to do that, and we can talk about that. But talk about, how this is going to be a good step on your career path, and why now? And then once again, explain your goals. So why our specific school program, and what you want to do with the degree once you have it. Now, we always know that career plans can change, but what is your goal going into this program, and what would be a dream career? What career are you currently working towards or in that you would like to advance in? Good. And then, so these are some common mistakes that both Rick and I see through the admissions process, and we understand mistakes happen. We're human, but here are some tips that we put together of avoiding these mistakes. So failing to follow instructions. So we know that you have a lot of information to share. You have a wonderful background and a lot of accomplishments, but we have limited time to read applications, and we receive thousands of applications. And so we have a lot of times we'll have word limits on how long your essays can be, how many letters of recommendation you can submit, if there's a video submission, how long it can be. Please stick within those guidelines. Part of being in grad school is you're going to really learn to write, concisely, and starting out with your application as well. So ask for extra copies of external documents. So request your transcripts and recommendations early, as mentioned. There might be things that you can't control. Is the school going on a holiday break or another academic break? Are your recommenders, is it a busy season for them? So make sure you give them and yourself plenty of time to get all of these documents. And submit the requested information, no more and no less. Making grammar and spelling errors. So read your essays and your materials again and again. Take a break, read them again. Have a second, have a friend or a colleague read your information as well, just to catch any, errors that you may have made. And, never be dishonest. So disclose issues straightforward. If you have questions about you don't know how to handle, or you're nervous on how to present something, contact the school to determine how best to discuss the issues or the gap. Do you have an education gap? Was there a semester where your grades weren't so as high as you would like them? Did you take a gap in your work? Anything like that. But we understand life happens, things happen. So avoid oversharing or apologizing. We can't change the past. We can't change what has happened, but we can, what's important is how we handle it. So never be dishonest, but don't feel the need to apologize for something. And then, most importantly, share how you've grown. How did you overcome that challenge, or that, kind of that roadblock? So those are just some tips that we would like to share with you as you are preparing your graduate applications.
Thank you. And I'll talk a little bit more about financial resources, financing your graduate education. There are many different ways. to fund graduate school, starting with institutional aid. And these are scholarships and awards that are given to you directly from the university, the institution, the graduate school. Most of graduate schools, when you submit your application for admission, it's also a financial aid application. And in many cases, they'll ask you, would you like to be considered for financial aid? Yes or no? And if you would, be sure to say yes, because then they're going to ask for additional information. So the amount that you would be requesting, they may ask for some financial information if they're making financial need-based decisions on institutional aid. It may also be looking at merit-based factors to determine aid. It could be a combination of both. But going back to what Ryan said about being honest, be honest here. If you do need financial aid, request it during the admissions process and say, yes, you do need institutional aid if admitted. Don't worry if you say yes to that the school may not admit you. That's not the case. You need to demonstrate that you need aid early during the admissions process. So when we do make admissions decisions, we can consider you for aid. And also, as Ryan mentioned, demonstrating your interest in the school by engaging with the school, contacting them, attending their events, asking questions, and preparing early. All of that is very critical to being successful in getting institutional aid, because we more often would like to award that aid to students who've demonstrated a strong interest in taking that award and actually enrolling. Also note, however, that institutional aid is, in most cases, it will not cover the majority of your costs. Usually it's going to cover a portion of total cost of attendance, not the majority. Now, there are full tuition and even full ride covering the full cost of tuition and living expenses, including stipends. There are institutional aid programs out there like that, depending on the program and their resources. But those awards are going to be highly competitive and limited. But again, any aid that, if you do need institutional aid from the college, demonstrating your interest in applying early and be prepared early is critical to being successful for aid. There's also employer benefits. You can, if you're currently employed full-time, you can speak to your own employer and ask for funding to attend graduate school. And graduate programs, especially those that require work experience, mid-career type graduate programs that may require 5 to 7 years of work experience, we often see students who are coming through on employer benefits. And if you need help explaining to your employer why they should fund your graduate education, ask us, ask the graduate school, because we often provide you with resources and assistance in helping explain to your employer why it would be a benefit to them to fund your graduate education. There's also external sources, and again, those are important to apply to early as well. External sources can be found in many different places, but typically the best place to look are, well, first, the institution's website will list external scholarships and funding awards from external organizations. They'll list them on their website that they recommend you look at, but you also may want to look at professional organizations in your field of study, professional network and organizations that will have websites that will also offer funding and awards to graduate students who apply. And those are always going to be, in most cases, going to be separate applications. You'll need to apply to those directly to the external organization. Research and teaching grants. In some cases, those may be offered to you at the time you're admitted. Other times, it's after you're admitted and when you enroll that you apply for these research and teaching grants. But those are grants offered to you by a professor who hires you to assist in teaching or their own research. And then student employment. And most graduate schools will offer student employment. International students can work believe it's 20 hours per week while school's in session and 40 hours per week during breaks. Student employment, also, you may be offered student employment at the same time you're admitted as a guarantee. But in most cases, you'll need to enroll in the university and go to their job board website and apply for student employment positions. Many of those will be administrative or in services role type roles. And then, of course, last but not least, your own personal resources. And you really do need to look at the cost of attendance, what possible aid you could receive, and your own personal resources. How much of graduate school can you personally fund through family and personal funding to budget, and apply the schools that you know are going to fit within your budget. When you're offered financial aid from an institution, many graduate schools will allow you to renegotiate that financial aid offer after you receive the award. And don't be afraid to ask if you don't believe that the financial aid package is high enough and that you do need more. After you're admitted and receive that financial aid, don't be afraid to ask the admissions and financial aid office if you can renegotiate for more aid. Let's say, for example, you apply to 5 graduate schools and 3 of them offer you a scholarship. One institution offers you a higher scholarship than another, but the other one is the one you'd really like to go to. Well, bring that financial aid award from the other school to the other school and say, you know, this other institution offered me more. Can you match this? It doesn't hurt to do that and ask. And many graduate schools will look at it and give that consideration. And if it's a peer school, a peer graduate school in a similar program that's offering more aid, many times they will at least match it. It's even possible that they'll exceed the aid. So think ahead too in your strategy for financial aid. There always is the possibility to ask for renegotiation. Now I'll turn over to Ryan.
All right, thank you. And so return on investment. So attending graduate school, especially internationally, is a large commitment, both of your time and your personal resources and your finances. So we want to make sure that you are getting a return on your investment. So not only a great education, but think about all the other opportunities that the institution that you are applying to can offer you. So these different benefits. So one-on-one career coaching. So as mentioned, career centers that the institution has. I know both of our schools have a dedicated career center for the international affairs. So if that's the field that you want to work in, they'll have a career center focused on those types of jobs. Think about the alumni. So no matter what program that you're applying to and where it is, look at the alumni that have gone through that program. Are these the people, are they working in the places that you want to work in? Do they have the career path that you are interested in pursuing as well? So your alumni, once you graduate from that institution, you're part of their alumni network. And those are going to be the people that you are working with, that you are networking with, and may potentially be getting jobs from one day. And so always make sure you take advantage of your institution's alumni network. Networking panels. All of the organizations have, or all the institutions will have different career events or networking panels where they bring in different speakers and professional experts on a topic. Make sure you attend those. These are free. Most institutions, these are free events that you can attend, and they might be a half hour to an hour, but always make sure you go when the opportunity is available. And if you have time and the speaker sticks around, go introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about yourself, and make that connection. Career track. So if there's a way that you can go shadow or do internships or anything like that, where you get to learn a little bit more about a different career field, or get exposure to as many different career opportunities as you can. Look at career days. So schools, for example, I know our school goes to San Francisco, California. They go to New York City, Los Angeles, California. They'll take a group of students each year to go and talk about the different career opportunities in those cities. Professional skills workshops, make sure you take advantage of those. And once again, this is just building your network, building your digital presence, and building your personal brand as well. And then employer presentation. So employers will always want to come to top schools to recruit top talent. And when recruiters come onto campus, make sure you go and talk with them, ask them the questions that you have, and make sure to network. So these are all just some, it could be easy, to stay in your apartment or in your room and study and really focus on, just your homework, which is very, very important. We want you to do that, but make sure you look at the community and, the opportunities that are around you on campus and in the community where your school is.
And that concludes our presentation. We do have our email addresses here if you would like to contact us for more information. Also our QR codes if you'd like to join our mailing list and visit our websites to learn more. But at that, we'll look at Q&A. Did you want to take a look first, Ryan, at the questions in the chat?
Sure. So one question, I would like to know about general approach to financial preparation for working adults who wish to apply to grad school, undergraduate degree in Japan and working in Japan. I'm not sure if I can get a scholarship, so I wonder if I should apply to grad school after saving enough money to cover tuition and living expenses for 2 to 3 years until graduate school. That's a really good question. And I think this goes back to a lot of what Rick talked about. So looking at the cost of attendance and make sure when you look at your cost of attendance for graduate school, you're not just looking at tuition, but you're looking at the living expenses. So many of the major cities in the United States are very pricey to live in. So make sure you take those into account. So you have a few options here. You can save enough money to cover tuition and living expenses, or if you have external scholarships that you're looking at, different fellowships that you're looking at, that is something to apply to as well. Rick, do you have anything you'd like to add with that?
Yeah, I think, and there's nothing wrong with waiting to go to graduate school. The more work experience, the more professional experience you have, you may be better prepared for graduate school, and you have time to secure resources and financial resources. If your current employer, I think that would be the first person I ask. The worst they can say is no, but will your current employer fund your graduate education, and in return ask for a commitment to working there for a certain number of years? So, but I would say there's nothing wrong with waiting, putting off graduate school to get more professional experience and saving money as well. I'd also consider looking at one-year programs because, graduate schools, yes, it might be 2 years, but there's many one-year programs out there too that make it lower cost overall because you're saving another year of living cost.
Great question. I see there's another question that says, should I secure recommendations related to the field in which I want to study in for graduate school? So I would say when you're looking at recommenders, look at people that can really talk about the type of work that you do and the type of work that you are capable of producing. So if it's an academic person and say you're going into international affairs, if you have someone that has taught you, your academic professor in that area, I say that's a great person to look at. If you do not, so say you're making a career change and you studied one thing in school, but you are now working in a totally different field, go with, what who best can speak to your talents. And that's what we are looking for in these letters of recommendation. So we can learn a lot from you from the application, but we would like to hear a few more voices about the different types of work that you can do. So I say it depends. I know that's not very definitive or helpful, but Rick, I will pass it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm reading a recommendation, I'm not looking to see what that person was teaching or what their field is. What I'm looking for is, what do they know about you? What additional context can they give me about you that I wouldn't see or in the application, or reinforcing things you've said in your application? What specific projects or talents or skills does that professor see in you? Because that's more important than whether or not, in our case, international relations, that it was a political science teacher. That's not as important. But of course, ideally, if you're applying for an engineering program, for instance, in graduate school, an engineering professor may be best able to speak to your capabilities, but it's not necessary, as Ryan mentioned. So that's a good question, though. But first and foremost, pick the person who can best speak to your abilities first, before anything else. Jump to the next question. I would like to join a PhD program immediately after receiving a bachelor's degree. Is it difficult to get accepted without research achievement? Yeah, the answer is yes. It's difficult to get accepted into a PhD program without prior research, without a specialization. PhD programs, in most cases, you need to be able to identify professors and faculty at the institution who are experts in the field that you want to build your expertise upon and can assist you. But they're also looking that you're at a level where you could really deep dive and research in something that you've specialized in. So without much research background, it would be very difficult. I don't know if Ryan, you have other thoughts on that, because I know you offer some PhD programs as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. You're going to want that research experience to talk about on your application and showcase. So if you have a few years that you can gain that experience, I say that would probably be the correct course of answer.
Yeah, and go to a graduate program to build that specialization and prepare for the intensive research that you're going to need to do at a PhD level, because otherwise I think it would be difficult to get into a good PhD program.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
I see there's one. I would like to study the brain neurosystem, and I researched some laboratories on the internet. I want to get more detailed information about some laboratories which I can study the theme I want to do. Can I email the laboratories directly? Yes. So always make sure to, every institution should have a general department email. So you'll see ours here on the screen. So each, the schools that you're researching should have that, and they should be able to put you into contact with either faculty members or admissions, members that can talk more. But don't be afraid to email. That's why we're here. That's why we want to have that information. So good.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to email. That's important. And that we administratively, there are support staff and student services staff whose job it is to assist students like you with those types of inquiries and questions. So don't be afraid to do that, because you do want to speak directly to people there. It can be really difficult just searching through the internet with so much information. Talk directly with them.
Yeah. Great question. And then I see someone said, I would like to learn something not related with my current job or my undergrad major to change my career path. Is this a crazy idea? No, not at all. We see this all the time with career changers. So the important part that to really highlight in your application and in your essay is why the switch. What led you to want to switch? So if you were studying one thing, but you had an experience or a moment, or you learned something new that you changed that path, talk about that and reflect on that, and get as much background information as you can. Look at other people in these career paths and in the path that they have taken. And even though no two people's path is going to be similar. So don't ever get discouraged and say, well, they did X, Y, and Z. That didn't really, matter. You can make your own path, but I don't think it's a crazy idea. What do you think, Rick?
No, not crazy. I'm thinking of an example. So I had a student recently who her undergraduate major was environmental science and worked in a nonprofit doing some scientific research, but then in her couple years experience realized that international policy is what she liked to do, climate policy on an international scale, and realized that that's where she wants to go professionally and apply to an international relations program. And that makes sense, as long as it makes sense to us, and it has to make sense to you. But that's one example where the student was really on an environmental science path and very much into biology and chemistry. And then through an experience realized that international policy is where her passion is, especially climate policy, and decided that an international relations program would best help her achieve that professional goal. And she was able to articulate to us in the application, and that's not crazy at all.
And here's another question that's kind of similar. I'd like to go to grad school in information systems, but my major is English literature and communications at a Japanese undergrad school. I'm wondering whether I can go to grad school without background knowledge or not. I would say, once again, if you have that, if you can demonstrate your interest and make sure to do the research. And do you have an opportunity to get a job or an internship or do some additional research in this topic, to really make sure this is what you want to do. But, it's, as Rick said, you could be on one path, but then, pivot or change that path. So I would make sure to take the time and really do some self-reflection about why this certain path, and learn as much as you can before going to grad school. So
yeah, this is also a good example of what you were talking about, Ryan, with prerequisites. I think that as well, because in information systems, you may want to ask them, what specific classes in my undergraduate are you really looking for? Because it's not always just a major. Are they looking for a statistics course or some type of computer science course? And if yes, and you don't have it, it would be a good idea to take those courses at a college level before you apply. If those aren't in your undergraduate studies, and that's something that program's looking for in the application.
Yeah, really good advice.
Yeah.
Here's a question asking, should I include personal experience, not just academic background, in my statement of purpose? Would this be efficient in the content, or should I focus on academic rather than personal and extracurriculars? So I would say with the statement of purpose or essay, you have very limited words, page length maybe, that you can use. And so I would say keep it as succinct as possible. We know that you have a lot of information that you want to tell us, but include some personal experiences. That's what makes you who you are, why you chose the path of whatever school you are applying to. This is all important information. And if it's not in your resume, if it's not highlighted in your resume, I say, try to put it in your statement of purpose.
Yeah, I think that's the point about the word limit, right? I mean, yes, of course, personal experience, but you have a word limit. So let's not say, when I was 10 years old, this happened, and when I was 15, this happened, and your whole life experience. Keep it concise and clear, but it should be a personal story. What impact, what had the greatest impact on you personally? What event or challenge? And what problems do you want to solve in the world because of that experience? That's what we want to see in the statement of purpose, and how that relates to your professional goals and your academic interests. Bring it all together. And you usually only have about 500 to 800 words to do that. So make sure it's compelling, but concise, but absolutely, include your personal experience because that's important to us, especially when we talk about holistic admissions and getting to know the whole person. The statement of purpose is where we try to find that.
Yeah, great advice. All right, I see we have a few more questions that we'll get to. My GPA is low. Does being a student at a prestigious university have any supplemental merits? So this is where I say we go back to the holistic part of your application. So your GPA may be low, but what else have you done? Have you done research? Have you done internships? Have you done extracurriculars? We also understand that, you know, the curriculum at certain universities offer, you know, certain classes while some do not. We do take that into consideration, but, you know, was your GPA low 5 years ago, or are you directly from undergrad? What have you done in this path? And, you know, what are other factors? So once again, this goes back to that holistic approach that Rick was talking about.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, of course, if it's a prestigious university, we know that it's a challenging curriculum. We're not going to compare you exactly the same GPA to someone with the same GPA at a school that may not be as challenging. Of course, that's going to come into our thought process, but that's not a main thing we're looking at. It's like you said, like Ryan had told you, it's everything else around it, all the additional context. And if you're worried about your GPA, prepare for the test, either GRE, the GMAT, or the LSAT, or whatever test that they either require, or if it's optional, especially if it's optional, and you're worried about your GPA, take the test and do well on that test, because a strong test score can often supersede a low GPA as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then our final question of the evening, once again, our email addresses are on the screen. So if you have additional questions you would like to ask us, feel free to email us, scan the QR codes to sign up for our newsletters as well. But one or two more questions here. I would like to attend PhD directly after graduate school. The universities I want to attend offer one-year master's programs. Would 1 year be enough time to prepare myself for PhD? So you know yourself best, and it depends on the field, I would say, and the research opportunities that you that are available in this master's program. Is this master's program a full-time master's program? Is it part-time? What does the curriculum look like? What are the courses that you're going to be taking? Do you have opportunities to network, to further your studies for PhD? So I think it's all dependent on the program and how you best learn and what experiences you are bringing into that master's program. Are you starting from, not a lot of experience, or have you had, years of experience before that? So I think there's a lot of different factors at play here.
Yeah, I know, like a 1 year is going to be 2 years combined, crammed into 1 year, right? So it's going to be intensive, that 1 year. In my experience, though, I've seen most 1 year programs are very career focused, and students are going directly into the workforce, but that's not always. And as Ryan said, it depends on that 1 year program. I would be talking to the faculty at that 1 year program directly. Find faculty members at that program you can talk to and ask that question. What are my prospects to get into a PhD program after this 1 year program? Because they'll probably give you the best advice, the faculty there. Are they very practitioner focused, career focused, or does the program give you the research background you would need to be successful in a PhD application?
Yeah, good question.
I think that's the time we have for questions. I think there was the last one about rankings, and that's the same again with our holistic review. Don't worry too much about GPA and the rank of your school. It's your entire application that's going to be important, and you need to supplement things that you feel might be weak with other things that are strong. So, but you all asked great questions. I think you're all going to do very well in your graduate school applications. But as Ryan mentioned, please feel free to reach out to us if you have other questions after this.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank
Yep.
you, Rick and Ryan. Thank
You're
you very
welcome.
much. So I hope everyone learned something new, and it was very informative, I think. So I hope all enjoyed. Rick and Ryan, thank you so much for staying up late and also answering all the questions. Thank you. So I think everyone is giving a big hand to you.
Our
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you for having
Yep.
us.
Okay,
All
so
right.
lastly, I have a few announcements. So let me share my screen again. Okay, so this is International Education Week, and we have several events coming up this week. So tonight we will have esports game majors to consider / esports session. So esport is continuing to grow bigger each year. So please join. This session will be more focused for the prospective undergraduate students, but we welcome you all to join. So for this session, 2 university esports directors are joining the session to introduce about esports environment in the States. So please join this session. And also on Saturday, more than 50 colleges and universities, including graduate programs in 27 states will join this online fair. So it will be an excellent chance for you to talk directly to the school representatives or alums. So please join this fair as well. So thank you so much for attending the session today. This concludes the webinar. Thank you all for attending. Have a nice evening to Rick and Ryan. Have a nice day to you all in Japan. ありがとうございました。Thank you.